So today we're going to talk about envisioning your optimal retail business. So we're going to show you a snippet of LS1. LS1 is a new system in Australia, but it's a system that's been developed for worldwide use, and a system that you'll see has the functionality to replace almost every aspect of RMS and some more. Today's agenda, we're going to focus on just a few LS1 features. So I've got a list here of 5 or 6 features that I'm going to show you. We're not really going to focus on the features you know and love of RMS. What I'm going to show you is the differences and some new features that aren't part of RMS, features that if you wanted inside RMS would have been an add-on. So what is LS1? LS1 is very similar to RMS. Inside LS1, we've got 2 modules, just like RMS. Inside RMS you have Store Operations Manager and you have Store Operations Pods. Well, inside LS1 you've now got the back office and the in-store section. So the back office is called Site Manager and the in-store section would be called the Point of Sale. Now the Site Manager may act as a multi-store controller or a single store controller. So it's the same program and exactly the same interface if you're controlling multiple stores or if you're controlling one single store. The point of sale is completely different to Microsoft RMS in that it has its own designing interface, which I'll go through, so you can actually design the buttons, design the look and feel, change the workflow of how a transaction might work. You'll notice there we've also mentioned hospitality businesses. So LS1 also caters for those retailers who delve into hospitality. So you might be a merchandise store or a bookstore or something similar, and you have a coffee shop adjoining your shop or built into your shop. You might have a cafe. So LS1 can cater for those options. And deployment and third-party technology. We'll talk very briefly about deployment methodology and some third-party technology. With Microsoft RMS, I'll just sort of mention that now. If you wanted an add-on, we had to develop the add-on outside of Microsoft RMS. So let's just look at FPOS for a moment. Everybody uses an FPOS gateway. We had to develop that outside of RMS and call PC FPOS. So that could sometimes introduce issues with two different programs talking and things like that. Using LS1, we can actually design add-ons and interfaces inside the core software and build you your own version of the software, your own build. That is, when we give you a build of LS1, it includes all your add-ins and all your customizations with the core source code. So there's no longer a need to install multiple programs. It simply installs with the one build. So features you know and love are all included inside LS1. Management of items through variants, so that might be your color, style, size. Also your variants in terms of 6-packs and dozens and cases, if we're breaking boxes to sell units. Inventory management, including purchase orders and transfers between multiple stores, are all there. I'll show you a different way to manage those today. Multiple taxes, taxation regimes and currencies. So if we have some stores in sort of multi-country environments, the language of the POS can now change, and the taxation can be determined based on store location. Support for multi-store environment. This we see this is catering up to about 100, maybe 150 stores, but all the way down to that single store environment. So it's a really scalable solution, and the communication technologies are completely different to Microsoft RMS. They've been written using the services option, so it's a lot quicker, and you can almost achieve near live communications. It's based on Microsoft standard technology, so we're still using Microsoft SQL databases. We can still use the freeware versions, and there's no need to actually purchase an SQL server until your database grows to applicable sizes. We've mentioned already, so we have the ability to create extensions and add-ons. We virtually have the source code for LS1. I mentioned RMS. We had to break the software to create you that new interface or that new add-on. With this software, we have the source code, so we can build the actual add-on or build you a new screen, add a new field in the database. We can do that live in the system, and there will be no need to physically break anything. It's all it'll be all part of the core solution. We've integrated to PCFPOS at this point. We are in the process of working with Tyro to get a Tyro solution up and going. So PCFPOS is ready. Tyro probably 2 or 3 weeks away, and we'll have that interface out to the market. We might go through some reporting and analysis tools, but I'll definitely make mention of those as we move through. And just touching on that hospitality feature, so we can cater to table management or over the counter. We are able to split bills, transfer tables, kitchen printing, kitchen monitors as well, cross-selling and upselling. So we do have the hospitality features if anyone does add a cafe or anyone has a cafe linked to their store. So I'm going to switch over to the demonstration now. I'm going to show you the 2 options inside LS1. I'm going to show you the site manager and I'll show you the point of sale. We'll go through the site manager first. Now, the point of sale and the site manager, just like RMS, need us to log on with a username and password. We are now able to log on using swipes or wrist straps. They are all supported out of the box. So if it becomes if it is a little cumbersome for your cashiers to log on quickly at the POS using username and password, we can offer other options at the login screen. Now, when I open the site manager, you'll see down in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm configured as head office, so I'm configured as a multi-store system right now. Now, the multi-store system I mentioned is a controller for all your stores, so it's no different to you using Store Operations Manager and controlling a single store, but in this case, I might be controlling multiple stores from a single spot. That includes controlling hardware, that includes controlling pricing, that includes controlling, even inter-store transfers and purchase orders from one single location. The look and feel. So you see a little dashboard appear on my landing screen. That dashboard could be a report. That dashboard could be a graphical sales representation of what's happened today so far, or what's happened this week so far, this month to date. It's a screen that can be what you want it to be. It doesn't have to be the core retail solution. If it's a CRM system you'd like to see as we open, we could open up any third-party application and use it as your dashboard. Your users may be none the wiser that it's an actual different product. The product can be driven using the ribbon across the top or the ribbon down the left-hand side. Sort of an Outlook feel. As you can see, as I click on the ribbon to the left-hand side, the retail option, the store setup, the general setup, and security. What I'm going to show you first is inside the retail items. So I'm going to click retail items and go into the item list here. I'll touch back quickly on the search bar here. By default, we get a search bar. I can change the search option, unlike RMS, where I've got to click to the right-hand side and go into separate screens. Here, I can just search for the word toy. And it brings up anything that begins with. In this case, I could have used the word contains if you prefer, but I've brought up any item applicable to the word toy. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a new import-export feature. So if you remember inside RMS, if you wanted to manipulate or make changes to your item list on a mass basis, it was very difficult to do. In reality, you had to use a third-party application. You had to export that item list to Excel and bring it back in using third-party tools. I'm going to show you here where I can just hit, this is my full item list here. I'm going to hit an export that button down the left-hand side, and I'm going to export a list to Excel template. I'll call this test and save that. I'm going to go right ahead and open up the test spreadsheet. Now what this does is bring a list of all items to my Excel spreadsheet. I could have just exported a range of products, but in this case I've exported every item in the database. Now, I'm just going to scroll down for a moment and find something relevant. And we've got Dora the Explorer here. So we've got flags and banner here. I'm going to change that to just Dora the Explorer movie. So I've changed the description. And I'll also scroll across and you'll see a selling price here for $12.99. I'm going to change that to $18. And I've got a Cars movie here. I'm going to change that one to a Cars toy. And I'll change that to $30. I'll go right ahead and save the Excel spreadsheet. And import that back in. Import from Excel document. Import the test. And I'll merge any record I'm changing. Alright, now when I go back into my retail items, you'll see my Cars toy. The description has changed and the new price is $30. As with my Dora the Explorer, wherever that one is, Dora the Explorer movie, and my new price is $18. So as you can see, I can export, and this is relevant to even replenishment lists. This is relevant to customer lists for mass changes, but I can export just about any data set you see in this system. I can hit an export button, send it to Excel, make some changes, and bring that back in. So without using any third-party application, without using any customized feature, it's straight out of the box. I can make those changes and continue working. So that's with our item list. Now I'm just going to close that for a moment and move on to a new feature inside the purchasing section. So inside purchase orders, just like RMS, we can create blank purchase orders and add a purchase order to add a new purchase order for a supplier with relevant items on the template. Using a new feature called inventory templates, I can create inventory templates as lists of my stock. So you might have certain buyers working on a certain range of stock in your stores. You might have a certain group of items that you wish to order on a seasonal basis, and so on. So I'm going to go and create an inventory template. I'll just call it test for the time being, and I'll just say I'm doing this for all stores. You can pick just a one store or two stores, but we'll just pick one store for the sake of it. Now, when I'm creating an inventory template, I can define which group this inventory template belongs to. Now, looking at groups, they are as what you know as departments or categories in your system. Doesn't necessarily have to be a group. So we've got retail groups, departments, special groups, or a vendor. I'll pick my audio groups. And as you can see, it's put all the audio items in the list in my inventory template. So assume I was a buyer just in the audio departments, and I'm going to create a block of items that I want to reorder, maybe on a seasonal basis or as the need arises. You've got some options here where I wish to any data you wish to see. So display reorder point, display maximum inventory, barcodes, set quantity to quantity suggested. I'll show you what that means in a moment. As we move on, I'll save that, and then I'll go into something called a purchase worksheet. Now, under the purchase worksheet, so where I'm working with the supermarket store at the moment, I'm going to add that. I'm going to create new ones, actually. Under my inventory tab, I haven't got any sales against those items, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick all items here. Select all. And preview. So this time I've actually got some suppliers against some of those items and some sales history against some of those items. My apologies. So when I go into the purchase template, it still hasn't created any orders for me, but when I go into the purchase template, you'll see here it's got all the items that are relevant to my inventory template that I've just created. So I added all items so it would display the reorder information. since I hadn't sold any audio products. Now, in this case, we get a suggested quantity based on reorder points and restock levels. So RMS would just go ahead and create that purchase order in the past. So they'd create a purchase order based on reorder point and restock level. In this case, what we're getting is a suggested quantity based on reorder point and restock level. And before it goes ahead and creates that purchase order, we're actually able to go in and change that quantity and update that quantity. So we could update that quantity to 150 pieces if you prefer. So it's using another level of management on top of that process that was inside RMS, where RMS would just go ahead and create that purchase order, but we don't want to do that. We want to define what the suggested quantities are, and then perhaps run some reports and analytics and make sure that we are indeed ordering the right quantity. Once I post this, so I go ahead and hit post this worksheet, and you'll see there it's created 4 purchase orders based on the suggested quantities or the quantities that I've now entered into the system. So if I view those purchase orders now, you can see there that it's created 4 purchase orders. I'll just double click on one of those and you'll see the items in that list. In the purchase orders, you can see I can order by variant, so by boxes, by kilos, by pieces. It's a lot easier to set up than the parent-child feature of RMS. So if any bottle shops listening today, the cases, 6-packs, dozens have all been revamped and reworked, and those features now exist. It's a little bit more easier. Now those purchase orders can be emailed out of the system, they can be printed out of the system, and of course we can post and receive those. Once we post and receive those, we are doing interfaces to numerous accounting systems, SAP Business One being the first at a higher end, but also the lower end, MYOB and Xero and so on. Now another item I wanted to show you, which is a little bit, when I say a little bit, probably one of its biggest features is the complete reworking of the promotions and discounts. Probably its strongest feature in LS1 is the pricing groups, the ability to create promotions, the discount priorities. Now just to show you one of those on the surface, I'll go into the mix and match. Now if you remember inside RMS, the mix and match belonged to an individual product, and essentially it was if we were buying, let's say, potato chips, you were buying salt and vinegar, you were buying some chicken, and you were buying some cheese and onion. The system didn't care what combination you were buying of those potato chips. It could have been 3 salt and vinegar, or 1 salt and vinegar, one plain, 1 chicken. It would give you that discount. These discounts are a lot stronger. So this mix and match, and I'll just go into this beach combo just to explain how they work. You'll see the priority here of 50. So first of all, we've always got to set a priority on any discount. If we've got multiple discounts, which one should come before the other? But in this case, just a simplistic look at this one. If we buy a Linda Beach swimsuit as part of line group A1, if you then buy one item in line group B1, you will then qualify for the discount of 20% off. So not a feature available in RMS without a customization and a tool probably called the promotions module or customer price matrix. Some people might know those as. But the mix and match could be you have to buy all 3 items, or you could buy one of these set items, or 1 + 1 + 1 to define the discount. So it's really the promotions inside LS1 are really deep. You could have contract pricing for your customers. Individual customers could have set price lists based on how often they attend your stores or how often they attend your events. And you can really define a certain customer gets a discount off a category or a department instead of just across the board. So RMS, you could say, oh, every time I walk into your store, I get 20% off. In this system, you could say you might get 20% off that department, but you don't get 20% off anything else. So you can really get down to the nitty-gritty of what type of discounting and what stores achieved what discounts. Actually, just touching again on promotions, it is really deep, and probably LS1's best feature is the pricing control of your inventory. We can really define member management and set pricing accordingly based on different tiers and structures and things. Now, another big feature is something called info codes. Info codes work similar to what you would know in RMS as reason codes, but they have an extra set of dimensions. So inside RMS, you would use an info code or a reason code to if somebody changed the price at the pods, and then you would run a report later on, and that reason would list against that report. But really, that's all they were for, you know, reporting and auditing. Info codes can do the same thing, but they have an extra level. The extra level might be for upselling, for cross-selling, and in addition to that, another level might be an info code could display a question, and based on the answer, provide a discount, or based on the answer, provide a change to the existing item, a modification to the existing item. We could define lists as the answers. So if you were searching for, if you wanted to interface to the Australia Post, so just like Rebel Sports at the moment, if you walk into a Rebel Sports store, they'll ask you for a postcode. Rather than typing into a text field where the cashier could make mistakes and type some incorrect data rather than typing a postcode, we could give you we could interface an info code to Australia Post, and then the user or the cashier is forced to enter at least what we deem as correct data. Inside RMS, we used to use the reference number field to track the postcode. Now we can use info codes, and the data will be true. So just looking at these info codes, I've got a few in my demo database here. I'll concentrate on the batteries one because it's an easy explanation, but as you can see, I need to give it an info code name, and underneath I need to give it those answers. No, thank you, yes, please. My yes, please answer, I'll just dig into that. You'll see a trigger code and a trigger function. A trigger function could be another info code or an item in this case. So I've selected, if you say yes to, will you require batteries? We'll add the battery to the info code. It could be multiple items. So there could be multiple items that exist, multiple batteries that exist against the same item. But the idea is for your cashiers to start surveying the client, perhaps, and you start really obtaining data and understanding who your consumers are. And the point of sale can then be used for not only entering sales information, but starting to enter some information about who the consumer is. So info codes can be used almost on a survey basis. Now, just checking the battery's info code itself. So the prompt is, would you like to buy a battery? And you can see here under the type where we can have texts or lists and things like that. I've selected buttons. So what that means is at the point of sale, it's going to show us touchscreen buttons as a prompt or for the answer. What I'll do is I'll now move across to the point of sale and show you what the point of sale looks like, and we might use one of these info codes. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and log in there. Now the point of sale is an application which we can completely design. So you can change the look and feel, move buttons around, move fields around. I'll just show you very quickly. You'll see the buttons on the right-hand side here. I'll click the clothing button, and you'll see pictures of items, and I can click on those to sell the product. I can click on my pants. It asks me for the size and the colour. So very easily, I can change these buttons and change the way they work and change the menus behind them. So we can really have layers upon layers of options there, or simply just one layer. Now, you notice I've got some items on the left-hand side. To finish the sale, very simply, I'll hit a fast cash button, and I can set up some fast tender buttons down the right-hand side here, and I'll just pay that in cash. The dockets can be emailed directly to the client, or they can print out based on customer preferences. So if you've got customers that don't need a direct printout and they'd rather them emailed to their phone or their inbox, they can be emailed directly straight away. Now, just looking at the info code that we were talking about a moment ago. So I'm going to sell the item that's attached to the info code, 100097. Would you like to buy the battery? So this is the example of that info code. I hit no, it'll just move on. In this case, I'm going to hit yes, and it adds the battery to the transaction. So you can see the info codes are a lot more powerful than the reason codes inside RMS. Again, to cash that sale off, I simply hit the cash button. There's my fast tender, and I'll give you a $100 note. Gives me my change. Now, I'd like to show you very quickly the back end where we can go in and really change the look and feel of the point of sale. So inside RMS, we have a label designer. Inside LS1, we have a POS designer. So if I go into look and feel and touch buttons, and I'll go into something different inside the supermarket. So this is a different point of sale, again, to the one that I'm showing you at the front, but I can just hit this change design button. And by changing the design, I can actually move parts of the POS across and literally put them anywhere. I can change the whole look, the whole feel. Probably can't see those buttons now, but just by clicking and dragging, I can change the whole system around and the way somebody might use it. Once I'm happy with that, I can save it, and that'll actually publish straight down to your store, provided it's the linked item. I can right-click on any button and go into the button properties and change what it actually does. Change the view, change the picture, change the color, change the shape. So the POS itself, you remember in the RMS world, we were stuck behind what you see is what you get. Inside LS1, part of the implementation is we sit with you and design a POS screen that will work for your business and work for your people. The last thing I want to show very briefly is a loyalty process built inside LS1. So again, you'll remember inside RMS there was no loyalty feature without third-party add-ins. LS Retail have built a loyalty application. It's a solution that they've built inside the application. They've kept the source code there for all vendors, so we're actually able to manipulate how it works and change those rules for you. Inside retail, I'll go into loyalty. Now you'll see there's loyalty cards and loyalty schemes. These are the two items I want to focus on right now. Inside a loyalty scheme, I've set one up here, just a points offer. Now the points expire after 5 years, and I can only use 100 in any one transaction. And what items are applicable? What are the rules for this loyalty scheme? So I'm saying at the POS, you redeem points or you earn points when you buy a lemonade in this case, and then at the POS as a tender amount, 1 point equals $1. So I've made a very simplistic scheme, but for this purpose I thought relevant. Now any scheme has to attach to a loyalty card, so you can have multiple loyalty cards out there with different schemes and different rules. So you'll see here Mrs. Sue Smith belongs to my points offer. She has been issued 210 points. She has used 190 points, and her current value is 20 points. So flicking back across to the point of sale, if I go into a loyalty request and type in that card number, now in a multi-store environment, or if you were using this software in the cloud, so you might be using your head office or your database might be physically hosted on an Azure server or in the cloud somewhere, this would do a live web service call to the gift voucher service that we're running. Now, as I type in the gift voucher number, or I scan the gift voucher number, it retrieves that from the cloud or from the head office database, from your main database if you've only got one, and grants me that point balance. So you can see there I've got 20 points to use in a transaction. Now, I'll just ring up an item And I'll ring up my batteries again. Oops. This time I'll say no thank you. Now you'll see here Sue Smith is added to the transaction as a customer. I'm going to tell the system that I want to pay this using loyalty. So I'll hit the loyalty button, and I can actually redeem all 20 points. You remember I had a limit of 100 points per transaction, so I could actually redeem all 20 points. But for this case, let's just say we'll redeem 10 points. I'm going to redeem $10 equals 10 points. Okay, and you'll see in the payment screen, I've now made a payment of $10 against the loyalty card. So when I cash that off, obviously with rounding, I now owe a further $10. And in this case, Sue's elected to have her receipt sent via an email address. So I'm going to say OK, and that will be emailed directly to Sue. When I look up that loyalty card now, you'll see Sue's got 10 points remaining. So we used 10 points. We paid $10. So Sue may use that in a later transaction, and she'll gain more points when I purchase lemonade. So anytime I purchase a lemonade, Sue will gain a point per dollar spent against those lemonades.